Plant care is meant to be something fun. One of you said we need to remember that this was always meant to be a hobby, but for a lot of people it turns into something highly stressful. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So yes, as I was saying, sometimes plant care can get a bit stressful. Some things like too many plants, a complicated care routine, constant problems, and all of a sudden your relaxing hobby is anything but relaxing at this point. So in this video, I'll show you three things. First, how to simplify your plant care so it makes it nice and easy for you. It relieves some of the stress from there. The biggest mistakes that a lot of people might make and make their collections or their house plant care much more complicated than it ever needs to be. And the mindset shift that will help make plants enjoyable again. Because, and this has come up in several of my videos comments recently, as a lot of people have finally come to realize, it isn't about large collections, not about having 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 plants plus. It's about enjoying the ones that you've got. You might be able to see behind me when things can start getting a bit pressurized. So usually one of the big factors tends to be huge collections. And I've already discussed on my videos recently, and I even had a bit of a downsizing video, and I have, believe it or not, downsized for me because I'm not planning on fully downsizing my collection. I just need to clear some of it just to make it a bit more manageable coming into the summer months. But yeah, big collections, that's when the overwhelm starts to happen. The other thing is going to be things like social media expectations, like having to always put stuff on your social media. I think people are getting a bit better about maybe not doing it quite as much, or maybe not signifying and showing kind of pristine plants. And I was doing it for a long period of time as well. I'm kind of showcasing things on Instagram and all of these things. I've kind of stopped doing that mainly because I don't have the time. See? Stress that could be avoided. And then the rare plant collecting, that adds extra layers to things. So for example, I don't have a lot of very good examples to give you, but for instance, this, I think it's a Rhaphidophora. I'll put it up the top there, basically. Collecting something that not a lot of people have, that you can't find easily, or that was exceptionally expensive, and you're just like, oh, I can't believe I paid so much for the plant. I'm not even talking about spouses, like friends, family, significant others, all of these things judging you or kind of going, I bought this plant for 1,200. This needs to come into the house and nobody needs to realize it. I'm not talking about that, by the way. Let me clarify. I do not have anything that's anywhere near that expensive. But again, I'm not judging people that did. It's your money, you work for it, do with it what you will. But it is something that you need to remember will add extra layers of stress, because you're just like, oh, if it's difficult to find, how am I going to find it again? If it dies, if it was really expensive, I can't possibly let this thing die because it cost me almost the same as a small secondhand car. Things like that will start adding pressures that weren't there before. And then you need to think about things like complicated care routines. And it's just like, okay, so this plant needs to have exactly this level of humidity and it needs to be watered exactly on this days. And if I let it go dry for a bit longer than that, it will kind of almost decimate. You can see that 1 might be manageable. 20 of the same kind of level of complexity starts getting a bit intense. 200 of that level of complexity starts going towards insanity regions and stress levels going super high. But let's talk about how you could potentially simplify your plant care routine. And some of the stuff that I'm going to mention here are things that a lot of people have mentioned, but guess what? The reason why we all keep mentioning them is because they are simple and easy to do and likely will have the biggest payout. So, grouping plants together, again, not a shock because everybody says this, but there's a good reason why we all say this. Group certain plants together, especially if you have overwhelm from large collections or by even small collections, and You might have mobility issues, you might have health issues, you might have life issues that kind of get in the way. Having things grouped together will mean that if they've got similar care requirements, you can go and, you know what, I'm going to water all of these plants at the same time because they've all got the same conditions. If they all need humidity at the same level, I don't need to run 25 humidifiers. I can just run one humidifier next to these guys over here. Or I can put them even easier. I can put them in a location which generally has the humidity level that they need. And I don't even need to waste some electricity at that point. They will all be happy because they are grouped together because their needs are the same. And whilst I pick up the medium-sized watering can, is making sure that watering happens through observation, not always through scheduling. I know we have talked about the benefit of scheduling, especially if it puts you into a routine of things, but making sure that you're only watering them when they actually need this. And I am talking to myself as an overwaterer and every other overwaterer out there. By and large, we all know at least a handful of people that are underwaterers. Talk to them and see if they have as many issues in the same conditions as you do. I would hazard a guess that is no. They'll still have some challenges, don't get me wrong. None of us are perfect. But it generally means that underwatering, if you're going to be causing issues to your plants, most of the time the biggest issues and the hardest ones to rectify, thus becoming the more stressful ones, tend to be an overwatering issue rather than an underwatering issue. So that should tell you something. And guess what? The overwaterers are less stressed because they just don't water them as much. They don't have to do as much care as some of the overwaterers we all like to think we need to do because they're just not watering as often as we are. It's just very simple. Less things to do, less stress, huh? And then one of the big things that has helped me, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this, and I'll kind of hide my face so you can kind of see that, that is the Soil Ninja's Anthurium soil mix. And you can see quite how light and fluffy and airy that is. And you might be sitting there going, but Memo, that's not going to work for all plants. You would be surprised. There was a very large period of my channel where I'm just like, everything just goes into this soil mix. Why? And a lot of us have found this as a solution as well to just bring down some of those stress levels, is because if you are comfortable with a specific soil mix, this works for me because, as I've mentioned, I am an overwaterer. It means I know how this substrate functions, regardless of the plant as well. So I know how quickly it can dry out, how long it can stay wet for, how much fertilizer I need to use. Because if you think about it, if you've already got several plants and they've all got different care needs, and each one of their soils is different, even more so, and I know some people ask me, they're just like, oh, but do you make your own mixes anymore? I do on occasion. Part of the reason is I just don't have the time now, so I kind of rate the Soil Ninja guys. I'm not sponsored in any way or form, but I do rate their soil mixes, so I know it's a bit more expensive than me mixing it myself, but it then gives me that level of consistency because they can have a recipe. I'm too airy-fairy and like half Greek, half Italian. Shout out to all my Mediterraneans out there and everybody who has been taught how to cook from family members in those regions where it's just like, how much do I put in? Well, you'll know. You can just feel it. You can just feel it. You've never made the recipe before. And just like, I can't feel it. I've never made this before. How am I supposed to know how much needs to go into this? Our mothers and our grandmothers. But we've all learned one way or another. I tend to do my soil mixes in very much that way. So I'm just a bit like, I think I did this last time. I might do this, maybe a bit more, a bit less. And that means that when I was doing that, there was a lot of inconsistency. It wasn't huge levels of inconsistency. I might, in my head, been using the same my recipe soil mix, but because it wasn't accurate, it did mean that there was inconsistencies that were causing stresses there, because I'm just like, you've all got the same soil, surely. You should all be reacting in the same way. Not quite that way. So something like that, which is much more calculated, and that's just a me problem. I know certain people that will do their own soil mixes and they are exacting on how they do it. Same thing, use that, but keep it consistent, and then that helps relieve at least having to also worry about the soil levels, about moisture retention, about airflow and everything else. When you know that everything's got the same thing, great. It's one less thing that you need to stress or worry about. Then the other big thing is choosing plants that work for your life. And I know that's nothing new, and we've all kind of talked about this ad nauseum before, still holds true. You need to think about, you know what, this, which one is this? I think this is another, is this a Rhaphidophora? I think this is a Rhaphidophora. I'll put the name at the top. This is the variegated form. But you know what? I kind of, for a large chunk of me trying to deal with my collection, I like it, it's pretty, I'll get it. That didn't work out so well for me in terms of stress levels, and I'm sure it didn't for a lot of other people. And then it's the moment that I step back and just go, I've had plants for a while now, and I know my conditions, my care, the plants that don't stress me out, and the ones that generally tend to be feral and they'll do their own, is something like a Rhaphidophora. So now when I find a Rhaphidophora, I'm just like, I'm more likely to give you a try. Or if I am kind of downsizing collections, I won't likely be downsizing my Rhaphidophoras because I know that they're easy for me. They do okay with my care and within my collection and within my conditions, which means these plants are not going to add levels of stress to me. However, other things that you need to think about. So, and I know that a lot of people, when they originally found my channel, is because I talked about my janky support sticks and I wasn't doing a lot when it came to moss poles. And I still prefer my janky support sticks over moss poles a lot of the time. But I hear you, and also there should be no shame if people don't want to use moss poles because it doesn't fit their lifestyle. They don't want to do all the faff, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. Great. But it also then means that if you want a plant that isn't going to stress you out, but you don't want to do the moss poles, maybe that plant isn't the right plant for you. Maybe you need a plant that will be happy on just janky support sticks. And I think for a lot of people that do that and they don't want the moss poles, they've kind of learnt this lessons over the months or years where they're just like, I'm not going to get that because I'm not going to keep it happy because I don't want to deal with moss poles. Valid and completely fair. Getting plants to work for your conditions. So for instance, I wanted to get the Retusa for a long period of time. This is maybe getting a bit too much light or it's getting a bit too much water. And maybe this isn't a Hoya that works for me. Hoyas might work for a lot of different people. There's people that don't want to deal with them because it causes stress because almost invariably you're going to end up getting mealybugs on your Hoyas. At this point, the mealybugs in this space are pets. Pets that I don't want, but pets nonetheless. But it is one of those things that this could work for a few people that maybe don't want to hover over their plants too much. I've learned, and you will see the nuances as well between what is a resilient plant for you in your conditions with your care versus somebody else. So this is a Hoya, but it's the thin-leafed Hoya. And every time I've tried to go with thin-leaved Hoyas, with the only exception, and actually I don't think it was thin-leaf, I was going to say the linearis, but the linearis leaves are actually relatively succulent. The Bella, the Hoya Bella, could not get that plant happy. I know a lot of people can. But at the same time, I know because I've grown enough Hoyas at this point, is the more succulent-leaved Hoyas, I don't have to worry about them. They're great for me. They are low stress plants for me because with my conditions, my care, those plants generally just take care of themselves. These are thinner-leaved Hoyas, beautiful as they are, cause me stress where they shouldn't do. Same thing goes, and I'm going to say something really controversial here. I am almost entirely off, with the exception of maybe 5 or 10 philodendrons. I don't like philodendrons anymore. And I'm talking about the more unique varieties that we might get. The slightly more bog standard, easy philodendrons that you'll get in kind of houseplant stores or plant stores or supermarkets or kind of your average garden center, fine. That's fine. But some of the more unique philodendrons, if I look back on every single plant that I have found challenging to grow, and some people might be surprised for this, it won't even be my anthuriums or my calatheas. Almost invariably, it's a philodendron. So that just tells me, in my situation, with my care and all these things, philodendrons maybe aren't going to be my best friend. And as I said, there are going to be exceptions, and you can't always generalize on genuses quite so easily. But there are going to be certain traits and tricks and trends that will kind of make sense. And that's why a lot of people maybe struggle a bit with anthurium, because they just don't, their care and their kind of mindset doesn't fit that. And that's completely fine. Stop trying to force yourself. Because I know a lot of us, when we're doing the big collections, are just like, I need the new big thing, I need the new pretty thing. But I think there's a lot of us that have been doing this for long enough now going, I don't need that. I don't need that because I know that I can't keep them happy, and I don't need that extra stress level back into my life. It's taken a lot for us to downsize to the level that we have. It makes it a lot harder now, not harder, but it's probably wiser actually, on when you're choosing things, because you're just like, I'm not even going to entertain this. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Or you do it whilst negotiating a bit with yourself and just going, I'm not going to add many more of those plants into my collection. I've got just rid of some of them, but this one anthurium is interesting to me. I might give it a try for another one like that. I've done that over the years, and a lot of the times genus-specific issues very rarely correct themselves with that one plant that you want to make work. It's your own journey to go on, but I think I've got to the point now where I'm just like, there's certain things that I'm just like, I'm not doing that. Gesneriads for me, a lot of the Gesneriads, I'm just like, I love them, I try them, I get attached to them, they do well for a bit, they all suffer and die at some point. So Gesneriads, type of plants like African violets, cannot keep that one happy for no love or money. So I don't even bother anymore. I'm just like, I like it, no, but it's not for me. It's not for me. But again, ultimately, we need to remember that certain plants are more resilient to inconsistency than others. Because, and this is the thing, a lot of the times when people say that ficuses like a routine to a certain point, they like consistency. That is what they're saying. And that, again, it's not going to apply, sweeping generalization, it's not going to apply to all ficuses. But I've struggled with those plants because I keep wanting to overcorrect instead of just keeping their care consistent. So I know that generally in my life, I'm probably not going to have that many ficuses, if any. I've probably only got like 3 or 4 at this point. And they're okay. They've proven themselves to be easier than the vast majority of other ficuses, but it's an entire genus that I generally won't touch much these days. I'll only briefly touch on the next topic because I did an entire video about downsizing and the emotions that come around with that, and I'll kind of link it here. But reducing your collection a lot of the times. So getting rid of the plants that don't spark joy. Making sure that you giving some of these plants to friends and family. And I've heard all of you are just like, there's no one to take them, or I've given it to everybody already, they don't want any more. Fine. Compost it is. And as somebody said in another video, it's just like, it's a full circle moment. You will go to the compost to help other plants survive. Think about it that way. It's a very kumbaya moment there. It's great. It's like, yeah, circle of life. I'm not going to sing The Lion King. I did have a moment just now, but no. But yeah, because that is also going to stress you. Having plants that you just don't care about, but you still feel the obligation to care for. There's the identity element of it all. And again, I go into more detail in that other video when I was talking about downsizing. There's all of these things that come into play that just compound the stress. Barring just the care, barring having to deal with large collections and all these things, that will also weigh you down. So if it doesn't serve you, let it go. Let it go, let it go. It could be somebody else's joy, even if it isn't yours. What's the expression? If it doesn't spark joy, it needs to go. And then ultimately, you need to start redefining what success might look like. And that is a mindset shift rather than kind of, I need to get this plant, or I need to get the other plant, or I need to do this. This one is a mind shift change. So define what success isn't for you first, because believe me or not, that will be the easiest thing. So for me, I'll use myself as an example. Success for me is not perfect leaves. Please note all the crispiness that is happening on the leaves. Does that stress me out? No, couldn't care less. I think it tends to like stress out more people that watch my videos than it does me. I'm just like, the plant is healthy. It's got crispy leaves. I don't care. That's fine. We're not perfect. Why should they be perfect? It's fine. And then success isn't necessarily a rare plant. Like if it's a plant that you desperately need and you're not getting it because it's rare and because everybody's trying to get it at the same time, fine. But it isn't the rare plants. Because by and large, how are you successful? The fact that you've just spent a whole bunch of money for a plant that not a lot of people have, which you don't know how to care for yet potentially, and which you might end up killing or make it struggle, which will add more stress. So for me, success is not rare plants. Quite happy. As you've seen in recent videos, and I keep showing this as an example because I am thoroughly enjoying this golden pothos on the thing. It does need to eventually move into the bathroom where it needs to live permanently, but for now I'm enjoying it in my space. I never thought I would say that. So yes, it doesn't need to be a rare plant to bring you joy. And then my bugbear Instagram plants as well. I'm just sitting there going, that's really nice. And it's nice to kind of look at it aspirationally. But, and I think that's part of this little kind of like story time, but more of a gripe from me. There's certain things about plant aspirations where they're expensive and hard to find, but not enough. And I will quantify that. So somebody, the average person who can't afford, let me bring an example of cars, who can't afford a limited edition Lamborghini. I don't know cars, so I'm using that as an example because I recognize that name. You look at it, it's an aspirational car if you're into cars, but for a lot of people, it doesn't matter that that is an aspirational car because the reality is you are never going to be able to afford it. And if it's limited editions, maybe only 10 in the world, they've probably already sold out. So for you, it's just a, look, isn't it pretty? And you have that moment where you just appreciate something that was never meant to be yours. For us, a lot of the time, the aspirational plants, there's an extra layer to that because the Instagram plants of it all is just like, isn't that pretty? There's enough that I can probably find one if I search hard enough, and it's probably not going to be the same price as a Lamborghini, like a limited edition Lamborghini, so I probably could afford it. Hard pass for me. Those are the plants that are not what I define as success. That's a very unique level of like crazy that I had at a certain point in my life. I do not want to go back. And then after you've kind of defined what success is not, then it's easier for you to define what success is. And in my case, again, I'll use myself as an example. And actually, for both what is success and isn't success, I encourage you, let us all know down below. You don't have to give a big list. It could be 2 or 3 things that you consider to be not defining of success and 2 or 3 things that are definition of success for you. And the reason why I'm asking you is a big ask because I know that a lot of people don't like to write big paragraph. I know a lot of you do. I do enjoy them as well. But put it down below. You'd be surprised. I think that's why I kind of want to encourage you to do that because I think when you all see what success is and isn't, you'll see some overlaps, but then you'll also see that we're all very unique and different in what we might consider successful or not. So what I consider successful is healthy growth. So the plant is still healthy and growing, might have the crispy tips, but there's a new leaf that came out and that is perfectly fine. It's still growing. This one specifically, where is it? Has also, and I don't know if you've been able to see me kind of wiggling something up here. Can you see? Something that's peeking up here. There's a bloom again on my Esmeraldens, and it always does it this time of the year. It means it's relatively happy because philodendrons are a bit bloom shy, especially in indoor conditions. So that to me is a success. It's a happy, healthy enough plant. The other big thing is enjoying growth of your plant. So for instance, this you might look at it and just go, oh, it's not perfect. It's been chewed on a bit by a slug there. But you know what? I'm enjoying the fact that this started off really small. It's finally attached to this. Even though I can't see the roots, it's shingling, it's velvet. I'm enjoying this plant. Thus, for me, that is success. I am enjoying this plant. Because some people might look at this and just go, I don't like shinglers. That's great, boo-boo. That's a you thing. I might like shinglers, I might not like shinglers, but for me, this plant is enjoyable. So for me, this is a success. And then plants fitting with your lifestyle. And I'll give you a very specific example for this. My kind of orchid wall that I've got at the top, that is the one thing that used to stress me out a lot because I had to bring everything down every 1 or 2 days and water it and just have to, and that added so much extra stress. And then I got my automatic watering system, the Rain Point one as well. And I had another one recently and that one's doing really well actually. I've done like the most recent video, I'll put it up here as well. And a small update on that one. Really like the second version better than even the first version. It's fantastic because it does the slow watering and then it stops and then it does a bit more watering and then it soaks in and then it does a bit more watering and it soaks in. It's wonderful. But that to me would have been, if I hadn't have found that system, those plants would have had to have gone for me because they don't fit in with my lifestyle. If I was, for instance, somebody, there was a point in my life actually where I used to, again, a small story time here, I used to travel. My commute every week would be a plane on a Monday to fly out to Europe, and I was doing VAT auditing at that point. Bizarre as it sounds. I am not an auditor, I'm not a finance person either. You got trained, it was a really basic job, but you got to see a lot of Europe for free that way. But you'd fly out on a Monday morning somewhere in Europe, you'd stay in that location for like a week, you'd do your work, and then on Friday your commute back would be on a plane again. You'd have the weekend, I'd have the weekend, I was still living in London, and then fly back out again. At that point, my lifestyle is very specific. The reality is, if I would have wanted to have a lot of plants at that point, it would have had to have been really simple things that don't have a lot of high watering needs. It would have been things like sansevierias, ZZ plants, things that don't need as much, like some cacti or succulents, those kind of things. You can kind of leave, disappear for a long period of time, come back. That kind of more, less of me being around would have been lifestyle specific. So that would have been success for me. Those plants would have been success. That would have been a good collection for me at that point. A bad collection would have been something that needed watering every day because purely I wasn't there to do that. But ultimately, and just briefly as some final thoughts, plant care and plant collections and the plant hobby should be there to bring you joy. If all it's doing at this point is giving you stress, adjust. Stop, downsize, change what you're doing, adjust what you need to be doing, whatever you need to do to bring it back into something that brings you joy. If that's even something that you want to do, you might just say, you know what, I am tapping out. I have had so much stress from this. I can't even look at another plant ever or for a few years. Fine, that is the journey that you're on. Close that chapter, move on to something else. And if you're ever meant to come back to it, you will come back to it. But if you weren't, that's absolutely fine as well. Plus, I knocked the plant down. But it is one of those things that you need to make it so that whatever it is that you're doing, if it's plants or even moving away from plants, needs to be okay for you. It needs to make you happy and not give you stress, essentially. But yeah, and that's everything I wanted to say. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.